Eating time. Let's get eating. Yes, get eating.
Welcome back to My Cupcake Addiction. Today I'm showing you guys how to make this elegant, gorgeous Beauty and the Beast cake where we haven't used any fondant. This is all buttercream, mud cake, and some really simple decorating techniques. Before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know that I'm currently giving away 3 Apple Mac laptops to celebrate getting to 3 million subscribers. 3 million, 3 Macs. It kind of makes sense. If you want to win one of the laptops, all you need to do is, of course, be one of my awesome subscribers, turn on the notification bell so that you guys get emails when I upload, and you actually need to put in your application through the Sweet Squad on the MyCupcakeAddiction.com website. It's the only way that I can get back in touch with whoever the winners are. Most creative entry wins, you guys. Tell me in 25 words or less why you want an Apple Mac, and get creative and make me laugh. I love to laugh. All right, let's get started on today's Beauty and the Beast inspired cake. I'm starting with a double batch of my chocolate mud cake mix, and if you guys have the Sweet Celebrations cookbook, you'll be able to cook along with me from page 211. If you don't, I'm gonna leave all of your recipes and dimensions, everything you need to recreate this on the MyCupcakeAddiction.com website. I'll leave a link to the post down below. I've made a double batch of that chocolate mud cake.
It doesn't taste like mud. It doesn't look like mud. It's a mud cake.
And I've baked it out in an 8-inch round tin and then also a 6-inch round tin. So there's enough left over for about 6 cupcakes for me. I used quite tall tins here, so if you've only got shorter layer tins, you'll need to bake 2 or 3-inch layers. I've got 3-inch high cakes, so I've got a lot of cake. I've got a double batch of my vanilla buttercream frosting and I've just tinted it kind of an eggy yellow, so it's that super deep yellow of Belle's dress. A little bit of whipping cream and some chocolate. I've got one single beautiful red rose. And this here is a little plastic test tube. So you can look for these in novelty supply stores. They're very popular around Halloween. You can also find them online. Just look for plastic test tube. We're gonna use that like a little vase. This guy here is a little cake dome. I've had this for ages, but if you don't know where to find one, again, look online. I think it's either generally called a cake dome or this one was actually called a cloche or a cloche. I don't know, sounds fancy. And then I've got cake boards. I have 3 cake boards, a 6-inch and an 8-inch to match my cake layers. And then I've also got a larger cake board. I just covered my cake board with some glitter red craft paper and a little yellow washi tape on the side so that it provides like a really nice contrast to the yellow of my cake. But because that's not food safe, you definitely want to have a base board underneath your main cake so it doesn't touch the glitter paper. Let's get started. First off, you want to trim any of the tops off your cake. So if they've risen, any domes need to be trimmed off so you've got 2 nice flat cakes. Divide each of your cake layers into 3. You can either use a serrated edge or a bread knife or a cake leveler here. Once divided, I'm going to use my 6-inch board to stack my 3 layers of 6-inch cake with a little of that pretty freshly melted ganache in between. Because my ganache is so fluid, I'm literally just spooning it on and then spreading it out, but not too much between those layers. Pop those off into the fridge to set with just the ganache in between, and then when they're kind of feeling firm, you can bring them out for a buttercream coat. Start with a nice thin crumb coat. So expect this coat of buttercream to get quite dirty. It's gonna pick up all of your chocolate cake crumbs and all of that ganache around the outside edges. Once you're happy that you've coated it and caught all of your crumbs, put it back in the fridge or the freezer for about 15 minutes just to let that first coat set. With your crumb coat set, you should be able to kind of tap on it. You want to stick a generous amount of frosting all over the cake, all over the top and all over the sides, more than you think you're going to need. I've got a scraper. I'll often also use just a regular metal ruler for this, or you can use your offset spatula, but I'm just gonna drag along the outsides of my cake, starting with the sides, trying to keep my scraper as level as possible with my little cake turntable. So I'm turning the cake and I'm scraping off excess frosting, revealing a really nice smooth buttercream coat. Make sure you don't hit cake underneath. Once your sides are nice and smooth, you want to get your offset spatula, and I like to just kind of drag the frosting in small sections into the middle of the cake, so that at no point am I kind of pushing frosting over the outside edges. I'm bringing it in so that I can get a really nice, smooth, flat top. Put those cakes back off into the fridge or freezer and let them completely set before you go any further. And now it's time to build. So I've got a circle cutter, and I'm using one that's just slightly bigger than my test tube. I don't want it to be too much bigger, but I don't want it to be smaller, or else the test tube going in is going to force the cake apart and the whole thing's going to split. We don't want that at this stage. So I'm going to find the center point, or roughly the center point of my cake, and I'm going to start that off with my circle cutter. I'll cut out a nice circle, and that's really just to give me a nice little neat start point so I don't end up with jagged edges, and then I can use a knife just to run around that circle to kind of loosen everything inside around that circle hole. Make sure not to get any crumbs on the cake. So that you avoid the crumbs, turn your test tube upside down and push it down into the cake, effectively scooping out all of those crumbs. Of course, you'll need to wash your test tube and dry it off, and then pop that straight down in the hole. And I just put a little frosting in a zip seal bag and just ran it around the edges using my finger to smooth it off, to just make sure that my little test tube vase is perfectly in place with no gaps around the outside edges. To stack my cake, I'm going to take my presentation board, so that cake board that I covered in the glitter cardstock with the washi tape around the outside. I'm going to put my bottom cake onto that cake board with a little bit of ganache. Then I'm going to use 4 fat straws, or milkshake straws. Place them into the bottom cake relatively close to the center and snip them off so they're all even. Take the 6-inch cake now and pop it on top. It should be evenly supported by those straws so it doesn't crush the cake underneath. To cover any gaps between your tiers, I'm going to put my leftover yellow frosting in a piping bag with just an open round piping tip. And I'm doing a very simple, kind of a scalloped edging style. So you just want to pipe a small dot and then use the piping tip to drag that dot flat on the tail, next dot, flat on the tail, next dot, flat on the tail, all the way around. Start and finish at the same point on both of your layers, so you've got a very definite back of the cake where your 2 little lines of scallops have kind of joined up. So this is what you should be looking at. I'm letting my inner florist out and finding my best red roses, trimming them off to size. The one thing that I did find with this cake is I really want to see the greenery from the flower leaves, but they were too low down on the stems. So I've pulled them off, the best leaves, and we're just going to pop them in at the top so that we still get the same effect. Don't forget to water your roses, or they'll die really quickly. Water your flowers, guys, not your cake. I have my single rose going in, and I want to make sure that sort of tilts just towards the front of my cake. And then I'm just going to rest these leaves in because it's all going to be covered by our nice little glass vase on top, or our glass cake dome on top, like so. And then I'm going to take a second rose, and because the rose in Beauty and the Beast is always constantly losing petals, I want to put just a couple of petals on the ground, like time's running short. Rose petals are edible and non-toxic, but just make sure that the variety of rose that you've chosen is okay to be eaten. Last but definitely not least, on goes our little vase, and I'm just going to push my leaves up so they don't get moved around too much, and rest it on top. That is possibly the easiest Beauty and the Beast multi-tiered cake. The thing I love about this cake is the dome on top actually makes it look like this massive 3-tiered cake. It's absolutely beautiful. We've got that little bit of element of fresh rose, and it embodies everything Beauty and the Beast without being a classic princess doll cake or being too kiddie. I feel like I could see this working at an engagement party, at a bridal shower, at a birthday. It doesn't have to be just for the kids, though I'm sure they're gonna love it too. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already for 2 new videos every week. And as always, guys, thanks very much for watching.